Have you been on edge lately? Just when you think you've done everything right in your shop, like buying the right equipment, processing finishes, handling customers, mastering accounting, something else goes wrong. Take, for instance, Faraday cage rage. It kicks into high gear when you discover drips or light areas in corners and edges. Today, we are combating it with our special guest, Kenny Barnes from TCI Powders. It's always great to have a powder supplier rep on the show, and today is no exception. Get ready to level up your powder coater game. Welcome to the Powder Coater podcast, where we interview influencers and talk about trending topics so that you can grow your powder coater biz. Today's guest is a guy that I met, or I've known via email for a very long time. He's our TCI rep. The TCI is a powder brand, and I actually got to meet him in person at Powder Coating Week this last March. And so I'm happy to have him on the show. Kenny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, like you said, it was great to finally meet you this winter in Orlando. So yeah, I'm looking forward to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, and I saw your badge first, because we're all wearing my name is whatever. And I'm like, Kenny Barnes. I'm like, I know Kenny Barnes. And then I looked up at this gorgeous face and said hello, and we hugged and everything like that. So it was, everybody was, in such a festive mood. Did you notice that? Like,
absolutely.
Everybody was just so happy to see each other.
Yeah, get some human interaction.
Yeah, the free drinks didn't. It helped a lot too.
Definitely.
But yeah, I loved the mood that was at the show. The technical show gets really technical. That's what I found out about Powder Coating Week. Of course, I started with the Custom Coater Forum, which was the day before.
Right.
And I tried to hang in there with a lot of the chemistry and formulation stuff that they were talking about, and like tried to make sure I had a Coke or a coffee with me, keep my eyes open, I felt like I was back in high school again, talking about some pretty technical stuff about chemistry and stuff, but it was still fascinating, even though I could barely understand it all. But I hung in there. I thought I did pretty good.
Yeah, it's a great show, and it's a great place to learn more about powder coating, no matter how long you've been in the industry. But yeah, I can definitely empathize with that. Sometimes it's just too much information all at once. And if you've been sitting in classes all day, sometimes you just need to break. Otherwise, you're not going to retain the information,
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I tend to overdo it when I'm like, I want to see everything.
Yeah. Right. just take good notes. Right.
Right. Did you attend any of the keynotes at all?
I think I did. Yeah. I saw Jeff Hale.
Particularly the last one, not the last one, with the closing one, which was the afternoon, which is the Detroit steel wheel guy,
Detroit
Adam. The Arkema one, the one in the morning on the last day. He was just talking. He had some pretty interesting things to say about our industry and how we need to improve it and stuff like that. And
was that the one about making it more sustainable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like
really
that one.
Yep.
That was good. I didn't like a lot of the fingerprinting or finger pointing.
Yeah.
And that kind of bugged me. I think it was just easy for them to say that at the beginning, but just to kind of get ahead of everybody. Oh, well, it's not us powder suppliers. It's you guys, okay, yeah, whatever. How about we all are in it to win it, right?
Exactly. We're all in the same boat.
Well, let me share my screen because I want to get into your company. And, I'm always into, learning about different powder coating companies and how they all, and then we'll get into the subject of why I reached out to you the other day in the first place, right? Because we're going to talk about Faraday.
Awesome.
So this is your website, TCI. You guys are based out of the East Coast, right?
Yeah, we're based out of Americus, Georgia.
Okay.
So it's a couple hours south of Atlanta.
Yeah. And you guys have I have all of your cards here and stuff like that. You have some pretty interesting colors that we've used. In fact, one of the biggest projects we ever did, which was the screen for the Hilton Waikoloa, is on the Big Island, was a two-tone effect that we did. Probably should bring up that that picture up on the web. It was a huge project, probably one of the largest volume-wise that we'd ever done. There were 2 screens I think we were doing because they were renovating 2 buildings, and it actually came out very stunning. Let me just tell us, how long have you been working for TCI? And then I'll go into my file and look for the picture of that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I've been with TCI for 8 years, coming up on 9 years this coming January. I'm a sales rep. My territory is kind of all over the place. I've been calling on you for probably 8 years now.
I know, yeah.
Time flies. Yeah, and I'm just grateful to be in the industry. It's awesome that you have a podcast like this promoting the industry. It's really fun being in manufacturing, being able to deal with customers all over the place and working with projects that, I didn't even know existed. And nowadays, just living life, you run into powder coating all over the place. Anytime somebody asks me what I do, I just I can look around the room and point at something, and it's probably powder coated nowadays. So it's cool that it's become what it is today.
Yeah, let me share that photo too, by the way, so people can see how big this project was. I heard that they were going to do more of it, but I don't know how or when or whatever. These resorts, sometimes they're all hot and heavy, and then they kind of back off. Yeah, this screen here. So it's like a darker, you can see that, right? I'm sharing my screen. It was like a darker, it really interesting the way they overlaid it. It was a very clever design. And this lighter
is that for like the stairwell?
I think so. Or, like all these resorts here in Hawaii are trying to kind of up their visual game on the outside, kind of make more
themselves.
Yeah, they're like making, like if they're building a new building, they'll put some kind of a concrete design, like a floral design or some kind of wave or whatever. And because the Hilton Waikoloa has been out there and built for a long time now, I think they were renovating the buildings and stuff like that. And so this was the design that they came up with. There were 2 buildings. So, can you imagine? The way it looks seamless, but it actually had lots of different moving parts and pieces that they all kind of linked up together to make that effect. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And in fact, this bronze here, this lighter bronze color, we ended up doing, because we had a little bit of powder left over, we ended up doing some rims in this powder. And I wonder if I can go back on my rims page. I think there's a picture of it in here. And I got so many, Instagram likes and views, like, what bronze is that? And I think it's called window bronze or something. It's not even, it's not even like a sexy name,
right?
At all. Wait, it's down here further because it was a while ago when we did that. I know
your website's great, by the way.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I worked very many. Oh, here we go. I think this is it.
Yeah, window bronze. Like you said.
It's a stunning bronze for rims. And that's what I loved about it. So many of these architectural colors are, so architectural looking, sure. Right? You don't necessarily think of them as bronzes that you'd want to put on a car, right? Or a car rim. I think that, what I've noticed in the Instagram and stuff is this matte bronze if you can find a good single stage matte bronze, usually you have to do a 2-stage matte bronze and just do a matte clear over the bronze. And then it can change the outcome of the color, the initial architectural color. But this was just such a nice bronze. You didn't really have to put a matte clear coat on it. So that was just the single stage powder as it was. And it's just a really nice, I remember getting a lot of likes and going, what bronze is this? What bronze is this? So,
we'll have to start marketing it as a rim bronze now.
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying something. But if you can perfect a matte bronze in the rim auto industry, you could market it and call it rim bronze or matte rim bronze and just sell a million people your powder. So
awesome.
Just a little hint there for the marketing department.
Taking notes.
But who do you really sell to mostly? I mean, tell me more about who your customer is and stuff.
It's a lot of, I have a lot of job shop customers, but there are OEMs, fence companies, architectural companies, companies that do, I have a customer that does like field goals and makes hockey goals, soccer goals, stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I mean, it's all over the place.
And are these mostly East Coast based because you are East Coast based, or are they all over the country?
They're all over the country. And I actually relocated to Salt Lake City last August. So,
oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, nice.
I've been working with a lot more people out West nowadays.
Yeah. I think there's always a opportunity, especially when you have a unique line, to expand further and further into the markets. And markets are ever and always evolving, right? I think the custom coder, startup, garage coder, and even just the, advanced custom coder is always looking for more resources. There's just never seems to be enough color selection or style selection or whatever it is that they're focusing on. They need something for it, Yeah,
absolutely. And different industries are moving away from liquid and they're moving from liquid to powder. So the doors are always.
There's that too.
Yeah.
That's cool. And you guys send me like quite a variety. I probably should grab hold on. Let me just grab because it's sitting right here, my little color chart.
Great.
This is your stock color card. And I have my Maui Powderworks sticker on there, so nobody rips me off. Bring it back. And Stefan, yours is kind of a fold out one. It's different from just like a book style.
Right.
And stuff. This is your main color card.
All those are products that we keep in stock.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you've got some stone effects, some hammer tones that look really nice, and stuff like that. There's that oil rub bronze that we used and the regular bronze and stuff. You got a statuary bronze, new dark bronze, which is kind of more of a dark brown bronze. There are some nice bronzes in here, and your textures and stones are pretty cool looking too. Like this Luna one, that'd be an interesting, like for lanai furniture or patio furniture.
Yeah, definitely.
That stone one.
Patio furniture market for sure.
Yeah. Cool. And you've got a nice selection of like grays, silvers, and those kinds of like this bright argent, stardust silver. Those are really nice too. For the auto rim guys.
Definitely. Yeah. Stardust silver is one of my favorites.
Yeah. So, but this isn't the only card that you have. I think there's another one here, but
we have an RAL deck, and then we also do have an architectural card as well.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah. This one is usually the one I go to. So you are in the lineup over here at Maui Powderworks. And it never hurts to have more selection. So, if the chance happens that somebody comes in and looks for something, we can help them find it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it never hurts to ask. So there's also other colors that we have manufactured from for certain customers where we have excess inventory or that we have since made a stocked product. So it's always good just to reach out to me if you ever have a project where you're looking for a specific color.
Yeah. And I think, you're different enough to where, like, if you're trying to find something in between two other colors or whatever, it's good to look at your catalog because you might just be in that, just that next level color that they're looking for. Right.
Right.
And stuff. But okay. But something does confuse me, or I need clarification on, and that is when I order my powder, it comes from a company called Intech. And because I'm usually ordering it in smaller batches, like 5 pounds, right? So I think it's 5 and 50 pound or 55 pound. Those are the two sizes that you said. But if you need something like small, you have to order through Intech, right?
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Intech. I'm also a rep for Intech. So they're a distributor for TCI.
Okay.
So what Intech does is they basically buy a 55-pound box from TCI, and then they repackage it into those smaller quantities, the 5-pound boxes, the 10-pound boxes. So that's why when you order a smaller quantity, the order is shipped and billed through Intech because it's at that point a separate company.
Yeah.
If you do order a full 55-pound box, that has to go directly through TCI. So
yeah. Okay.
The difference.
That's how it works with you guys. Yeah.
Because TCI just doesn't they don't sell their products in the smaller quantities. They just sell full boxes.
Right. And if somebody wants to start an account with you, do they go contact you or do they contact Intech? What do they do?
Yeah, they can contact me and I can get set up with either company.
Well, we'll make sure to put your contact information in the description and the when they go to YouTube or online. I'll make sure to have that contact information in there so that they can start an account with you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think I just remember filling out an application. And I don't even know if you still have this on your website, but you could actually add yourself to your website. Do you still have that page?
On TCI,
yeah.
Yeah, True Coders, or it might be a different tab on the website now.
Which I thought was brilliant of you because as a powder supplier, it's very rare that, I know that some of the secondary market, powder suppliers will, they have like platforms where you can create a page or something on their website or whatever. But when I saw that opportunity, I wanted to make sure that I got on there because it creates a valuable backlink to your business. Right. So, and it always helps people that are looking for applicators in that area. If they find that page, then they can kind of sort through, and it's like a directory, mini directory.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And I thought that was really forward thinking of a powder supplier because some of you guys are not as forward thinking for custom coaters, I guess, not necessarily for the industrial generational powder coaters that they've been ordering the same powder from you for 15 years or whatever. Right. Okay. But us custom coaters are the cool kids, and so Absolutely. We have to have flashy stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let me head over to that website let me see if I can find, okay, let's go back to the rim, that beautiful rim we did. And here's the Intech page. This is what we came here to talk about. But here they have Intech. They sell GEMA guns. They've got the booths, Mighty Hook. They got your powder on there. They do Teflon coatings and some other ovens here too. So they that was where I was kind of needed that clarification because I'm like, well, do they own you or do they just sell your product? So you're saying they're just a distributor.
Yeah, exactly. They're just a powder coating distributor and the powder supplier that they distribute for is TCI.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Got it. But here's the main part of what we want to talk about today. And that is Faraday cage. And I don't know how I stumbled upon this. I think I was doing some other kind of a search and I stumbled upon this very simply laid out blog post because when you generally read a lot of technical blogs about powder coatings and powders and all kinds of stuff in our industry, it can get really for someone learning the industry, it can get really in the weeds very fast. And I wish it wasn't that way. I think there's definitely a need for more layman term type technical blogs instead of the super high tech technical blogs, right? In our industry, there's a big gap there. Of course, at Maui Powder Works, we kind of innovated writing to the customer. We were just trying to write blogs that customers would want to read about our industry, or, what powder coating is about. So that's helped us navigate that for us. But there's a whole need of, these simply written application type stuff to kind of just glance over it, make sure that guys are doing it right, or, problem solving, right? And that's what I like about it. And you have graphics, which is awesome, because that can also give people an easier way to understand how they're supposed to do it. So that's really cool. And it's it's just a page, and it just highlights what you want to focus on.
Yeah, like you said, it's the pictures are great because I'm a visual learner, so it helps me too whenever there's pictures. And yeah, I think the thought process behind it was to keep it short and simple, like you said, not going too many technical terms that would just fly over people's heads. So it's just a quick sheet to kind of go over the Faraday cage effect.
Right. And so, but I downloaded this and then uploaded. I had Ross look at this and see not what's missing, but how can you add to this in a sense that it makes it even better. And so Ross got a hold of this paper and started drawing and stuff like that. And but let's go over some of the more technical, stuff of what is Faraday cage. Let's just start there.
So basically, the name was coined after a scientist from the 1800s, Michael Faraday. He was doing experiments and he found that electricity, or I guess excess electricity, would build up on the outside of an object, but not on the inside. So to prove that, he actually had an experiment where he would put a person inside of a cage and aim electricity and that would onto the cage, and it would only build up on the outside and it wouldn't affect the person. So that coined the term, the Faraday cage effect.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Are you reading from Wikipedia right now?
I did actually have to Wikipedia that before I got on. I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
No, but it makes sense. And if you've ever sprayed either liquid or powder, if you've ever sprayed a flat panel piece, you'll see it firsthand, know, especially if you're not doing it right. Yep. So now you're talking. So how are you solving this problem here with Faraday?
Yeah. So first off, like you said, this is kind of what you've found to be the best for your application. Unfortunately for Faraday, there is no silver bullet. So what works for your application may not work for another application, and it's different from job to job, from part to part. So everything that's on this sheet and that we discussed, I just kind of advise my customers to try out different tactics, different nozzles, different gun settings, and figure out what works best for them. And one of the nicer things about the powder coating guns nowadays is you can store recipes. So there are presets for the Faraday cage effects, but then there's also, in addition to that, there's the recipe pages where you can find, your Faraday recipe, save it. So then whenever you have that specific part, to use preset recipe number 4 or whatever it is.
Yeah. When you're doing this guy's parts and that guy's parts, and, like you're doing a run of stuff. Yeah. You don't want to have to rethink how you did it last time. But I think what I like about your graphic is that it does tell you the best angle to spray. And I think that that's kind of like when you're learning powder coating or you're just painting or whatever, you are, the angle matters, right? Because people are so used to just hitting it straight on when they're learning. and not thinking about angles or getting kind of creative there. And that's what I liked about this graphic, because it does tell you that you do need to spray at an angle.
Yeah, basically. So what's happening in a Faraday cage effect is like in that picture, that's just, you're spraying a corner of an object. Powder coatings are electrostatically charged, right? So being electrostatically charged, they are drawn to the path of least resistance. So just for that picture right there, it kind of looks like a V. The powder is going to want to ground to the sides first, not that corner. So
right.
You don't.
And you can kind of see there's a little detail here where it's just slightly darker. I mean, they could have made it even more dramatic, right? Because in the V here, it's very light. And then over here on the edges, it's heavier. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Yeah, that was a good point. So basically, yeah, so the powder will kind of be rejected from this corner, and then it will build up on the sides. And if you have the angle going directly into the corner, the airflow will actually be trying to shoot the powder out of that corner, and it won't be able to go anywhere because you have the gun aimed directly into the corner. So that will just continue to have the film build up around the corner and not in it. So that's where we suggest having what they call an obtuse angle. So I kind of tell my customers anywhere around like 30 to 45 degrees. If you aim your gun that way, it kind of just helps the cloud build into the corner rather than just trying to jam it in there. And then, look, on your little diagram there, it looks like that what you guys have found that a flat jet nozzle works best. So that's great because versus a typical cone tip, the flat jet nozzle decreases the powder cloud and makes it more of like a straight line. So that's a great tip to get the powder directly into the corner. Whereas the cone tip kind of makes a bigger cloud. So again, both could work. It's just kind of up to the customers to do their own testing and figure out which works best.
And I think
application.
I'm not sure if, when Ross opened up the Wagner package from wherever we bought it from was, I'm not sure if this tip comes with a gun or not, or if that's a special order tip. But I'd imagine that the average gun just comes with a round conical tip. This might be, and what we're describing here, in case you're listening, is that it's got a slit in it versus just a round hole. And you can, put that tip on and it'll have a pattern that sprays linearly up and down, or it'll go, if you turn the gun or you turn the tip, it'll spray flat or horizontally, depending on what you're doing. All Ross is describing here on this diagram is that he's using the vertical slit, like Kenny just said, and it's going in there. But there are a few other steps that Ross added to this. Of course, it includes hot flocking because he is the hot flocker in the Pacific. The best hot flocker in the Pacific. He thinks that heating up that metal actually helps lay that powder, or you've already got this electrostatic thing happening, but the hot flocking, the heat actually kind of adds to the, I don't know if you want to call it a gravity effect. It's not really gravity, but it helps the powder stick and add in there. Absolutely. So you see what you're doing. Really, it's really about seeing what you're doing. We can kind of debate to hot flock or not. We did a couple of videos on, a couple of podcasts way early on in the, when we started podcasting. I think it's episode 3 or 2 and episode 18, all on hot flocking. But so if you're not hot flocking, there's still other things that you can do here to decrease the flow rate, because you don't want a big fat cloud, because it's just going to add to that. You're going to be fighting yourself on that Faraday effect. And what you're trying to do is just minimize it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have too much flow or too much powder delivery, you can just be the powder can essentially be bouncing off of those corners. So then you're just wasting powder, and it's also creating more of a charged corner, which is going to have you run into back ionization and all kinds of other problems.
Yeah. That's the
Another tip I thought of was if you know that you have Faraday cage areas on a part, you're going to want to try and powder coat those first rather than doing the flat parts. Because like I said before, powder is going to want to go to the path of least resistance.
Yes.
So by doing the Faraday cage areas first, then you can kind of go to the flat parts. It'll just make your life a whole lot easier.
That's a very good point. And also to reduce the PSI and the KV. So on this drawing, on the blog post, it says reduce the voltage to 40 to 60 kV.
Right.
Ross's method is 50 PSI and 50 kV, 25 milliamps. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's kind of like his preset, I guess, if you want to call it that. He just does it. He doesn't have all the presets set up, but he just dials it in because he knows. And I should have probably taken a picture because right when this happened, we got a last minute job in where it was like these shelving units, but they were like, the panel itself was probably about 2 feet wide. And then it had just a 2 to 3 inch lip on the edge. So there were lots of angles on this. Plus you've got weld marks and stuff in there where they join together. And it had like a little hook where it kind of dove in and hooked into some kind of a panel system of some sort to, I don't know, put a drink on or something. I don't know, whatever they were doing with it. And it was actually some really, so it's basically two-sided where you had two different angles on, one on each side that, it's complicated, right? On top of having to hang it just right and everything like that, and it was perfect. I mean, he just did it one time and it was just, he did a primer coat because it's going outdoors, but, and so they also saying the next tip is that you want to keep a distance of about 8 to 10 inches from the part.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just kind of a baseline. So, there's certain parts that are going to have huge recessed areas and you need to be sticking your arm all the way in there. So you may need to get the gun a little bit closer than the 8 to 10 inches, but just kind of as a benchmark, that's what we recommend.
Yeah, I think that's if you haven't learned that by now, it's something you need. It's one of the first things you need to learn in terms of, learning different parts and what you need for rims versus architectural jobs and everything in between. Okay, we covered the slotted tip, spray the slot in line with the corner. And so he's got it all dialed in there. And then approach recess at an obtuse angle. We covered that. So that was it, right? Are we done? That was it. We've solved all the Faraday cage problems of the world now, thanks to this podcast.
The only other thing I'll say is it kind of stays true to any powder coating problem is you want to check your ground. It's a good place to start if you want to make sure that your hooks and your racks are clean, especially when you run into issues. It'll just make your life a lot harder.
Yeah, I actually had John Cole, I think it was episode 34 on Parker Ionics. The guy is just a master at that. It's one of the best podcasts I think we've ever produced. Nothing on my part because I didn't know much about grounding. So I just kind of let him talk and he had these beautiful slides and he's just, one of those guys that has just been in the business for so long and just master, right? Yeah,
you're not going to be able to just stump him with a question.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. So I think some of the other ones they wanted to finish up this blog post was, reduce, make sure your air turbulence is reduced, allow for deeper penetration into
Right.
the corner, minimize early back ionization. That's again related to grounding and stuff like that, and utilize more lines of force. What is that? What do they mean by that? More lines of force.
That's a
Utilizes
good
more
question.
lines of force. I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I think it can go back to what you opened with. Is sometimes I think the people that make these are engineers or scientists,
Jargon.
and yeah, so they're speaking a different language.
Yeah. So, well, hopefully you can get the word out and people can, like Intech or TCI or anybody else can start writing a little bit more simply. I think that's going to help the custom coder market a lot.
You're absolutely right.
It's the forums are gone, and that's where you're getting that kind of non-jargon help. There are some forums still out there, but it's not as readily available. And even I think part of the problem is just like, even in the groups today, it's just so much attitude and ego going on, and somebody trying to prove a point or whatever, rather than just disseminate the information, straightforwardly. Right. It's just always somebody's going to get butthurt over what they say or disagree. And then it just becomes this big giant argument and stuff. And that's what we're hoping to do at the podcast, is just try to talk to the experts and, see what we can do about just, getting more information out and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love what you guys are doing. And I think it's huge for the industry, and more and more people are listening to podcasts nowadays. So it's
Yeah.
great.
What are you guys doing in the future at TCI? Are you going to FabTech? Are you going to any other conferences?
Yep. I'll be at FabTech. So we're a member of PCI. So I attend all the PCI events. So I went to the annual meeting this summer. I go to FabTech in the fall, and then Powder Coating Week will be right around the corner after that.
It is. It's in February. We're already planning it. And hopefully we can pull it off again. Yeah. I guess they added me I keep getting added to these committees that I'm like, oh, well, let's just add Kim in there. She'll show up. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to this one. There's another one, I think next Tuesday or something. I'm like, I don't even know what that one's about. But it's been great talking to you. And
how's this past year been for you for business?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Pretty good. We just got like a $20,000 job like last night at 10 o'clock on the email. Oh, we're dropping this stuff off. See you tomorrow. I'll give you my credit card. I'm like, okay, I got to do a podcast. I got to, Ross is fixing up his truck right now. I'm like, okay. So yeah, I think it's going to end strong. We're ahead volume wise, or like dollar wise, we're ahead by about 22% from last year, which is always good to know and good to hear. I think definitely the inflation is putting some drag on the profitability though. So that's concerning. And, obviously you can't control that at all.
It's tough.
I think there's still some supply chain stuff going on with powders and chemicals and stuff.
Absolutely.
How much have you guys charged I know you've increased your prices. I remember getting an email a while back, but it didn't seem to be as extreme or as frequent as like Axel Nobel or some of the other powder suppliers that were just sending out emails left and right. Oh, another 20%, another 40%, another, so.
I think we've increased our prices about 3 times. We've actually only done one price increase since March of 2020. What TCI's chose to do is, instead of increasing the price, there's a surcharge. So there's your price per pound of $3.99, and then there's a separate line item that's a surcharge. The thought process behind that is, when things kind of stabilize, whenever that happens is, we're yet to see that. But when that happens, they want to take away the surcharge. So it's a lot easier for our, accounting system to do that rather than to go through a price reduction. So That's the thought process behind a surcharge rather than.
Yeah. And I think you haven't had any, I think that's a great idea. I have seen that from some other companies as well. I think it's great. You haven't had any shortages, have you yet? Or like, have you run out of something? Because I heard like Cardinal ran out of BKOA, which just seems impossible to the world. But yeah.
So we've ran out of stock of products that were supposed to be kept in stock, but we have never, I don't believe that were ever in a situation where we were completely out of the raw material. It was just, we ran out of stock and then it's, in our production queue. So they've done a really good job of stocking up on the certain raw materials that we know that are going to be in high demand. So it's challenging though. I mean, it seems like every other week there's a different, like you said, chemical or additive or resin that's just hard to find. So it's a fluid situation.
Yeah. And then, it's just like going and getting toilet paper at Costco when there's a hurricane or some kind of, like something, you're hoarding, you can't help but buy more of what you need because you just don't know. Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know that's, you kind of have to be pragmatic about it, but, but how has TCI been? I mean, have you had a good year or how's it going for you guys in the powder industry? And where do you see powder industry, continuing on, and manufacturing for that matter? I mean, you're on the East Coast. I mean, if something's going to slow down, it's going to start there, maybe even in Europe first, right? And it's scary what they're saying, out of Germany right now too. So what's your take on all of that?
Yeah, I mean, we're having a great year. We're up in volume and we're up in sales as well. So it's been a great year. Still another quarter left. So looking forward to closing out strong.
You're not too tied to Europe, are you?
No, it's more Asia. So I think that's a lot of the powder coating industry. A lot of the raw materials do come out of Asia. So it's just challenging. I mean, I think China still has the zero COVID policy. So it's just, what
are they doing there?
They'll shut down a whole shift. And then that just puts a wrench in the whole supply chain.
The whole thing kind of baffles me because they're hurting their people either way, whether they get COVID or not, like locking them up caging them in their own homes. I mean, it's beyond ridiculous at this point, but like, why, what do you think their thinking is with that? I just don't understand it at all.
Yeah. I don't know.
Killing them softly.
Yeah. I guess they know the demand is so high that we can't go anywhere else. Right. So all the manufacturers of powder are still going to be placing those orders with them. And it's just
right.
All we can do is take it. There's not really anywhere else we can go.
Maybe they're just trying to buffer themselves from a really severe recession in China. Because remember, back in the Great Recession, they never really felt like what we felt. They just kept on trucking like it didn't matter. And then now they're in their housing crisis because of what they did. That's the outcome of what they did out of the Great Recession. They had one quarter where things might have dipped like 0.1% or something, like unheard of, right? But I mean, I think some of that's coming home to roost for them, but they do 36% of the world's powder coating.
Yeah, I believe they're the biggest market.
They are the biggest market. Yeah, they are. So maybe, you're right. Because they have 30% of the market, they think, well, people aren't going to go anywhere else. We're the 30%, we're a third of the whole world. Right.
Right.
But I don't know. Not that you can believe anything coming out of China, but
no, not at all. To answer your question, as far as where I see powder coating go, I think we're already seeing it more lower cure coating. So there's other, new markets like wood and MDF that are already, there's companies out there that make more coatings to those markets than TCI, but I can see us getting more into those markets. I know that our lab is working on coatings that'll work in those markets. And then I was just reading an article that they're kind of seeing UV curable coatings becoming more popular, which is, with everybody in the world trying to be more sustainable, I could definitely see the US powder manufacturers getting into more UV curable coatings.
Yeah, I think there's at least a lot of these global companies that were, in China are now rethinking China and coming back to the U.S. Maybe not necessarily, some of them are manufacturers, others are more tech based or whatever. But
Sure.
I think I don't want to say I'm making a prediction here, but I think it is a positive that this reshoring thing or revising and thinking less global, more central, North American based or America based is kind of like we're the old reliable that everybody walked away from when China was like, oh, but China's so cheap. And you're like, oh, now you're seeing some of the pitfalls of that. But I feel positive about our business
Good.
right now. And I feel positive about the industry in general.
Yeah, so do I. And yeah, it's promising. Like you said, the reshoring, the jobs coming back to the States is great. I mean, they should have never left, and it's a shame that they did go offshore, but it's good to see some of them come back.
Yeah, I think Europe is concerning because of the gas crisis and stuff. We're just starting to see that. Who knows? By the time this is published, it'll have changed and inverted and everything by the time we get this published, but who knows? But I think there's going to be a lot happening this fall, no matter what, lots of drama. And we just need to kind of take it as it comes, right? Most of the powder coaters that I talked to, that I interviewed, and they just seem to keep getting busier and busier, and we were kind of talking about if things were to if things were to slow down in America, will the powder coaters still be busy? And I think the answer is yes. I think some of them are going to get even bigger and busier because the smaller line companies maybe won't be able to handle that volume. And then it'll come down to the intermediate coaters, right? Or custom coaters. Right. I'm just thinking custom coaters, not, the big guys, but I think the demand there would be those guys getting bigger. If you're small like us, mom and pop, you could be in for some tough because we're trying to think our way through. Yeah, we're busy and we're making more money than we did last year, but then that inflation is really kind of cutting into the profitability. So if you're suffering with high debt or you are not keeping up with your bills or whatever, or you've got this inconsistent cash flow, I think that will unfortunately be really bad for these guys that are either just getting started or in kind of like this trying to ramp up more business, but then can't get it kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how it's going to move and shake, I think.
Absolutely. And the price of everything is so fluid. There's just, anytime.
I know you guys are doing the best that you can. You really are.
It's a challenge just because everything's so fluid. So one of the good things about TCI, and I know the other manufacturers do it, is they try to absorb it as much as possible. And then once it gets, past the breaking point, we try to give our customers, as much a notice as possible, up to a month or at least a few weeks, just because, I feel for you guys, if you get a job, you price it out, they agree to the price, and then your supplier hits you with a price increase. That's hard.
We just increased our prices by 5%, and we increased our powder price by $5. So, I'm doing it now because not only because I know inflation is here, but I don't want to be behind the curve. And in the past, when we were still, when we were younger, we didn't stay up on our prices when we could have charged more and stuff like that. So I think for me, I'd rather be more proactive at this point rather than save
Definitely.
face for a customer, right? Because we're trying to think smarter here, not, rather than just faster or this or cheaper or whatever, but there's a lot that we've done in the background to get us to where we're at brand wise. And so that I feel more confident being able to charge the kind of pricing that we are, and I'd rather take the $20,000 job than 10 or 20,
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. So,
yeah, it's challenging. It's these past couple years have been crazy. I mean, it's just one thing after the other. So
yeah, you got to do what you got to do to survive.
It's got to whip back in the other direction. So there may still be some hard times ahead, but I think eventually we'll come out of this. But like we were just talking about, I mean, the powder coating industry is growing. So, I think for TCI or most of the industry after that April, May of 2020, it just came roaring back, and it's kind of hasn't turned back since. So that's a good sign.
Yeah. In the end, I mean, when you weigh it all out, I think it's going to be positive for North America in general. So awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So good to have you on the show, Kenny, finally.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Had a fun time.
And you're welcome back anytime.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to come back. And like I said before, all the Faraday cage tips, I just stress any custom coder to play with those and figure out what works best for them. And if you can, store that recipe on the gun or, in a notebook, whatever helps you out.
Yeah. And I think, just to kind of add to that point, it's like, I think a lot of us just wait until the job comes in, and then we're like, oh shit, how do we do this? Right. How do we powder coat this? And maybe you're right. Maybe you're onto something. It's like, go and get some, junky parts or whatever that have this kind of problem, and to them, right? And then practice, right? Maybe it just takes some practice and just taking that time to really think things through while you're doing it so that it makes sense to you. Because you can read a blog post all you want, but until you're actually putting it, physically in your hand and you're doing it, I mean, it just, the light sometimes doesn't click on until you do, and I think that's how Ross has arrived at where he's at, is like, he actually stopped to slow down and just really think through, how am I going to do this? Right. And then feel it, right?
Sure.
Connect the brain to the body, to the hand, to the gun, to the, and have it all make sense. And I think some of us are so frantic, doing it. It's just like, they're just doing it to be doing it, to get on to the next job. And that's, sometimes you can't do that because it's really an industrial art.
No, absolutely. And some jobs you may have been able to just kind of gloss over it, and the Faraday cage wasn't really an issue. And then you come up with something with a more exaggerated angle, and now you're kind of screwed. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with being proactive and kind of testing out on scrap parts. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, have a beautiful day, everyone. Thanks for liking, subscribing, following the podcast. rosscoat.com, YouTube channel, Maui Powder Works, maybe all of that. Maybe someday we'll just have one giant website and it'll be just beautiful. I'm kind of getting over the pre-programmed one from Podbean, but we'll get there somewhere, somehow, some way. Keep growing. All right, everybody have a great day. Aloha.